Hi guys, this video dev diary is going to cover the gameplay we've got so far for Nest, and I'm going to be talking about some design and a lot of changes to that, which is why I've got my sketchbook here. I'm going to sketch out how it's all supposed to play out when all the functionality's here, but for now I'll show you what I've got. Before we do that, I think I've forgotten to do something. Right, so I've got this fade image. It's just an empty sprite, as you can see, colored black. So it's just a big rectangle with its own canvas and canvas renderer that I'm using on screen space. So this is just filling the screen with black. But I've written this script here that has two functions: fade in, fade out. That call coroutines that move the alpha of that image. I believe fade in plays when this object is enabled. So let's say you put this in your scene and you enable it. When the scene starts, this will go from solid black to 0 alpha, and it's not a raycast target, so it's not going to get in the way of any mouse clicks or GUI stuff. So I could really drag this into any scene I wanted to fade into, and you've got that nice effect with one simple drag and drop. That's object-oriented programming. That's the kind of tricks that's going to increase the efficiency of your game production pipelines, that kind of thing. This is by no means clever, but things like this, I don't know why I don't have them. They're very reusable. So I'm going to plug this into the back to main menu button. So return to main menu. We do that by adding an on-click event to button. It's going to play that event when I click down and then up. But I mean, we just drag in a game object to an event. And then we can do these like basic things such as setting active, which can be true or false. Obviously it's a bool, which is how I'm moving through the menus, which I'll show you in a second. But we don't want to do that. We want to go to the fade image script that's attached to that object and find the functions that I wrote. And I believe we want to fade to solid to go back to the main menu to cover up all that ugliness. And that should work just fine. Okay, now I'll show you how much game we've got, starting with those pretty menus. So this is the game menu. Gotcha. Invert, options, help just has the controls at the moment, but I'm going to put some tips in here. And return to main menu, which we just set up with the fade. And there is that pretty fade. So the reason this looks so pretty is because the GUI here, all of these UI texts are rendered in world on world canvas. I did a similar thing with the fuel on my rocket in Space Existential. You can see the day-night cycles here in the menu. Really this is just the game scene duplicated, but without any terrain generation, except for the first chunk. And yeah, we've got the same stuff, except we've also got credits here. Let's go back to the game and talk about features we've got so far. Alright, so I can toggle flying or not flying, just with A. I want to change that to be A to raise and B to fall. And so if you're holding B and you touch the terrain, you're walking. I think that's a lot more simple. Instead of doing this kind of move towards where you look, I want to strafe the player on the XZ with the left stick until you hold left trigger, which at the moment is just sprint. But I want it to be strafing just like this, and then holding left trigger to fly where you look. So you've got like two really intuitive modes of moving around, because if I come down here and try and grab this thing, it's really annoying to kind of orientate myself above it, whereas if I could just look down and strafe and fall, it would be much easier to position myself where I need to be. But let's do that anyway. We get this nice tutorial prompt down the bottom to grab right trigger to hold it, and all you do is hold it. As soon as you release it, you let go of the thing. I thought that was really intuitive. Jacob's created a spring joint right there that we can play around with, but the whole idea was to have the thing kind of flop around so you don't forget that it's a rigid body, you don't forget that it's a physics object. As soon as you make things kinematic and, you know, translate them towards a transform, it all looks disconnected. And this is a physics sandbox. You know, you're supposed to be able to play around with the physics. It looks like I'm dying there, the top left, and realize I'm starving to death. If you interact with these, you get a bit of health back. I'm just going to spawn heaps more, not in the ground though. Just going to spawn heaps more so I can feed myself. At the moment, you can hold X and interact with heaps of things. I don't know if I like that, because like you're never going to see heaps of these things together unless you make like a little horde, but they're too precious, I think. You can see that green bar surrounding the health bar filling up. That's our energy. I've got the little DNA symbol there, so you get the idea that it's about evolution, it's about change. When the player fills up that bar, I'm just going to fake it. So when the player fills up that energy, they can build. And oh, I got a little bug there. I'm showing the right trigger icon. Must have been because I was above 1 when I ate it. Yeah, that must be it. So this is one of the changes. You can only build, let's go over here, press Y. Yeah, there we go. You can only build on these terrain props. You can't build on the ground. You obviously can't build in water. But we'll get to that. Hold Y to build. You've lost all your energy, but if we sit on this nest, we've got this ability to. This is a little janky at the moment, but I think it's. Oh, there we go. You can see the health is filling up because I'm sitting on the nest. That's the whole idea, but you're not immortal because like that nest is starving just the same as you are. So it's all about feeding the nest now. You're going to be coming back to this place. So let's emulate that. I'm going to look around for another cube. Oh, I didn't know they spawned with the terrain props like that. Sometimes the terrain props spawn on top of those cubes. Yeah, PCG is a lot of work. Can't downplay that. Still might handcraft this thing. Let's drop that on there. Nothing pretty at the moment, but you can see that the energy and the health for that nest is going up. Now I'm going to fake that a bit by spawning some of these cubes. Right, now that we've filled the energy for the nest up, we can interact with it, and what should be happening is the nest and the player die, and the player respawns at the nest location as a new bird. But we don't have any more placeholder birds, like we just have this one at the moment. But let's just pretend I've become something new. This is the entirety of the original game loop. You're supposed to just do that and get a different bird depending on what you fed the nest. And so you try and find all the birds that there are to unlock, right? That was pretty weak. I may have mentioned it earlier. I mean, apart from this responsibility, it's not a really strong aesthetic. Just this addition of having the nest heal you really changes the relationship the player has with the nest. I know it might just seem like a feature that you can just throw in, but there's a reason now that the player doesn't just worry about feeding themselves. They're worrying about like the nest, maintaining their home more than their own kind of self. Okay, now that you've got the gist of what we've got so far, I want to talk about what we still need to do, and I'm just going to draw how I'm imagining the gameplay progress to play out. Bear with me here. It's kind of hard to explain. And so I'll start with drawing the height curve that I've got at the moment. You've got the shoreline, and then it's kind of flat where I imagine the forests and, you know, most of the game is. And then it goes up really sharp for the mountains, and then there's like kind of footholds in the mountains like that. That is, like in 2D, what most of the environment looks like right now. And if we spawn the props in, we've got these rocks that sit down really low. They've got this flat top. We've got bushes, and we've got trees. And we've got these strange plants and other small bushes up in the mountains. So these are all the terrain props that I showed you can spawn your nest on. The water is a big part of the design now. In the original game, the only real hazard was, well, time and starving to death, and that becomes really mediocre once you get a hang of the game. I need to throw, as Tony would say, you need to throw a wrench at the player after that. And the water is that wrench. So the water starts here, right, and steadily moves up over time. Now that's a big deal because let's say you decided to make your nest here. I hope you can see that blue. If the water makes it up to here, the nest will die, and you'll have to gather energy for the player, for the bird itself, by interacting with it instead of just feeding the nest. You'll have to gather energy by eating yourself in order to build another nest. So let's say that you've now got these terrain props to choose from. We're going to make a nest here. You've got all these choices for these terrain props, but just want to clarify that the distances you see here, obviously in 2D, and in that game play that I just showed you, they're much less exaggerated than what I want to go for. I want flying up a mountain to be a big deal. Like, you need a lot of health to get up here. You know, you can't really fly up here then fly back down here to get health off your nest unless there's heaps of food along the way, which there isn't. Food is more, I guess, rare up in the mountains than it is in this area and this area early in the game. So you'll want to build a nest here, because if you find you fly up, the kind of ceiling to the world is that you start to lose health really quickly when you fly up really high. And so you've got these separate zones that are kind of like easy, hard. But you can equip yourself for that. Let's say, so you've got fish in the water here, okay? If you build your nest here, this is you, early in the game, okay, you can very efficiently collect a lot of fish. So when you feed fish to the nest, and then you interact with the nest, you become a bird that's, say, just for an example, you become like a fish-shaped bird. No, maybe not, but you become a faster bird. I mean, catching fish is easy. They're dumb. They jump out of the water. You've got plenty of time to like swoop past the splashes and just grab them when they're up here. But you've got then another enemy, or I should say, prey. Should I put it here? That spawns above the water height. If you can see that, maybe it's a little slug or grub-like thing, but if the bird flies towards it to try and grab it, they enter a sphere collider and the worm grub thing kind of digs underground to safety, and when the bird moves away, it comes back up again. And so if you don't have a fast bird, so let's say this is the fast bird, this is the default bird. If you don't have a fast bird, you can't get these. So you can kind of prepare yourself better by feeding certain prey to your nest and evolving into something better. This is a bit of work. We've got attributes at the moment, but it's a lot of work in regards to design as well as technical implementation. But this is the whole idea. You eat this, you become better suited, or even this is locked until you evolve to be something that can actually hunt this. Now let's say you're hunting this, living in the forests and kind of plateau area. You might become a bird that, let's go over here, that's really strong. I don't know how to draw that. I'm going to make him a little bit bigger. He's got big, wide, strong wings. Okay? This is a bird that's got a lot more health. It might be a lot slower than the fast bird. You can't catch those slugs anymore, but it's a bird that's got a lot of health. And so it is better suited for finding, let's say, up here in the mountains, these fruits spawn on trees very rarely, all right, and inside these plants. And you can fly around and see them growing, but they're not grabbable until they're big. You're going to be better suited to finding those spread out resources when you're this bird. So you're going to go from being the starter bird, doing whatever, but not very well. And you can kind of pick, after experimentation, what type of bird you want to evolve into as the water rises. Now, that's like the gameplay progress if I was doing just the kind of, there's an end game, like it's really sad because the water will rise and there's nowhere else to build a nest and you just die, it's game over. I was thinking of adding more though. I was thinking of bringing the water levels up and then bringing them back down, and so you kind of, let's say you're eating these, you kind of become a bird that's more prepared again for this kind of environment, perhaps because you're spending a lot of time eating or feeding the nest and being reborn as this thing that, I don't know, maybe you by eating fruit, which might spawn on well, basically everything, you become the default bird. I'm not sure what kind of like type the default bird should be, but I know I kind of want, if the water level is going to go up and down, I kind of want this to kind of come back to this, but then I'm not too sure yet. That's the idea at the moment. To begin with, I just want to have this rising up, and so you've got to move your nest around, you've got to adapt. But then this is the whole extra level to that adaptation, to changing your home and what home is based on circumstances and what life throws at you, which at the moment is the water. But also in the wild, as an animal, your home is very competitive. Animals all have territory, and so I've got a really good idea for some simple AI so that we can have, let's do this one in purple. we can spawn nests on. I'll spawn a nest here on this bush here. We can spawn nests, which then spawn dumb AI birds. Okay, and they just fly around. They don't really do anything but kind of make the environment look, well, cluttered with life. But you see their nests, right? They don't look like your nests. If you go near them, the bird that's randomly flying around, the dumb one, it will fly towards you, make a whole bunch of noise, and if it collides with you, it will hurt you. You'll see your health bar kind of animate and go down very quickly. And so you get the gist that these are territorial. You can't build your nest near theirs. That's a big no. And so if we've got this happening, and I make sure that there's always the same amount of these AI birds in the scene, it means that as the water rises and there's less props that you can actually build on, it becomes quite competitive. You're really not just looking around for these more sparse kind of interactables, but you're spending time looking for a new place to build your nest every time you make one. So this is going to need a lot of work. Again, these extra dimensions, so that whole idea of home being something that you have to adapt and really carefully consider the placement of and the setup. But yeah, I have a really good feeling about these three elements, really: the water rising and making things tighter, and adapting physically, and being careful of the territories of these other animals. So just like with your nest, these AI birds with their randomly generated nests, like if their nest goes underwater, I'm just going to have to spawn another one so that on another prop somewhere, so that that count stays the same, so that when the water's at its peak, it's very competitive. It's going to be a lot of work to make that not look janky, and I don't think I'll have that done in the next week, but I'm really confident I can have this water rising. I've already got the nest being destroyed, but I'm really confident I can get this water rising and at least spawning different birds that have different attributes based on what the nest was fed. That's half done. It's a bit buggy, but we can have something like this. I don't know how meaningful it will be. It might just be superficial, but it's a start. But I'm really looking forward to working on this in the future, really spending time increasing my skills with AI, as well as this dynamic level design, I guess. I don't know what to call it, but it seems like a lot of fun. I mean, if it's anything like this picture, it's got to be fun, right? I think that's all for now, but thanks so much for listening to my probably way too long video dev diary. I'm really excited about where this game is going.